Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michelle Baird, the CEO of Freedom Learning Group. I'm very excited to be with you today for this special forum to discuss support and services available to our military spouse community. At Freedom Learning Group, our founding mission is to provide meaningful and flexible work opportunities for the military-affiliated community. Today, we're honored to help provide this space with our partners to highlight resources available to you through the U.S. Department of Labor's Veterans Employment and Training Services. Allow me to first introduce our moderator from Hiring Our Heroes, Elizabeth O'Brien. Elizabeth is the Executive Director of Hiring Our Heroes.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much, Michelle, for that warm introduction. Thrilled to be here today. Military spouse employment for us at Hiring Our Heroes has been top of mind for a decade plus now, where we have worked very intentionally to build strategic partnerships, relationships, pathways, and reskilling and skilling opportunities to place military spouses into economic opportunity. And as we've gone through that process, we wanted to make sure over and over again that we are partnering with the right individuals, the right companies, the right organizations, companies and organizations that are authentically committed to ensuring that our military spouses have a pathway not only to a job, but to a career. And so today, to round out our efforts, partnering today with Freedom Learning Group, with the Department of Labor, sends a strong signal around how nonprofit, public and private partnerships can exist to ensure that we're creating an ecosystem that really sets military spouses up for every stage of their career, whether you are just entering the workforce, re-entering the workforce, or looking for those career opportunities. And so now it's my immense pleasure to introduce the Honorable James D. Rodriguez, the U.S. Department of Labor's Assistant Secretary for Veterans Employment and Training Service. He's an executive leader and proud veteran with over 30 years of experience in the U.S. government, corporate sector, and the United States Marine Corps, where he served for 21 years on active duty. His recent executive experience includes leadership roles at Deloitte and BAE Systems. He also previously served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, Office of Warrior Care Policy, Office of the Secretary of Defense from 2014 through 2017. Most importantly to me, he is an authentic leader who truly cares about our military spouses and is creating opportunities that haven't existed before. So over to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Liz. You're so kind. I want to thank Hire Our Heroes, Freedom Learning Group. This is indeed a pleasure for me to come and speak about what we do in partnership with all of you all, what we do at VETS to ensure that our military spouses have the same types of rights that our veterans rightly so work for, and we know how important the support of our veterans and our transition service members, how important that is, that our military spouses are taken care of also when it comes to employment. And this was actually, this morning, I was testifying in front of the House Armed Services Committee subcommittee on economic development. And some of the things that were discussed in this committee were the importance of protecting military spouse employment rights from the chairman, from the ranking member, other committee members, and of course, from my remarks to the committee. So we take this as a task that we know we have to put all of our effort into, just like we do for our service members and transitioning veterans. So with that, as mentioned, I am the Assistant Secretary for the Department of Labor, Veterans Employment Training Service, and I lead a team of over 2,800 federal and state staff, contractors, and grantees all across the entire country to include Guam, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and the great state of Alaska. Last year, our team served more than 440,000 veterans and military spouses across all of our agency programs nationwide. One of the things that we are, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we are really passionate about is supporting our military spouse community, because we know how their service is inherently important to the successful service of a service member. during that active duty time, whether they're guard or reserve and or in that transition process. People who've ever heard me speak know that I fully support that military spouses are an integral part of that transition success as well. We want to make sure that they also have the resources to support them working with our colleagues across numerous aisles, whether it's corporate space, whether it's the VSO space, MSO space, and of course within the federal government. We know our military spouses are extremely educated and a talented force, more educated than our active duty spouses in many cases, yet their experienced unemployment rate are estimated at 21%, 7 times the national average. Due to frequent moves, more than 10 times greater than the national average in non-military families, and I'm sure many of you on this call have experienced this. They also experience underemployment and occupational license transferability issues. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 38% earn less than their civilian counterparts. Let me rephrase that again. 38% earn less than their civilian counterparts. So think about that. The amount of sacrifices and service that a military spouse contributes to the defense of our nation, right? Indirectly or directly, 38% is unacceptable. So we definitely want to do what we can from vets and with our partners to remedy that. Military spouses, their employment has strategic and national security implications in sustaining the all-volunteer force that will turn 50 years old this July. We have conversations with our colleagues at the Department of Defense to really look at ways to support military spouses because, again, we know how important it is to that overall retention of service members when they are making that decision to transition out of the military or remain. Increasing employment opportunities for military spouses will not only help retain members of the armed forces, but it will enhance military readiness and will allow employers to tap into a talented pool of individuals that is often overlooked. They can do this while sustaining the all-volunteer force and the well-being of our military families. We know how important it is to ensure that our families are taken care of. In addition, the Transition Assistance Program is a required program for transitioning service members to attend at the completion of their service to assist them with civilian workforce life. The classes are also open to military spouses, and I encourage every military spouse given the opportunity to attend the class, whether in person, online, or in a virtual or in a hybrid environment. Because each year, nearly 200,000 service members take off their uniforms and transition to the civilian workforce. And supporting that transition is my priority at VETS. Because that's a priority for us, we are looking at ways to consistently update our TAC curriculum. And in order to support our transitioning service members and military spouses, we have updated that curriculum here recently. And this year, we made significant changes to 2 of the 3 DOL TAC courses that service members take when they're transitioning from the military. First one, our DOL Employment Fundamentals of Career Transition 1-day course and our 2-day DOL employment workshops were updated to incorporate recommendations from DoD, military spouses, Office of Personnel Management, DOL vet staff, contractor facilitators, and most importantly, transitioning service members and military spouses who have taken the course. All DOL vets TAC curricula are available in self-paced online versions and are accessible to you. The beauty of that is that they're recorded. You can go in and take them at your leisure. We understand that spouses, families also have a full schedule as well. So we want to ensure that they have the ability to take the courses when their schedule allows. A new program that we piloted in 2021, some of you may or may not be familiar with, is called the Employment Navigator and Partnership Pilot. In order to provide more support to our transition service members, this pilot was created, and we started the Employment Navigator specifically to include military spouses, just like we did with the updates to the TAC curriculum. This is our first program to provide one-on-one career assistance to interested transitioning service members and their spouses outside of the traditional TAC classroom, thus extending TAC training and assistance. And this initiative is currently available at over 20 military installations worldwide. We continue to expand EMPP, as it's called, based on interest from installations and military service. Our employment navigators, which we commonly refer to as ENs, assist transitioning service members in securing meaningful and lasting post-separation careers and making connections to available resources from governmental and non-governmental partners. EMPB services include self-assessments, skills testing, career exploration, resume reviews, and identification of high-demand occupations. ENs also assist participants in selecting career pathways and connecting them to partners and resources based on their individual needs and interests. VETS has also partnered with selected high-caliber organizations from the public and private sector that focus on providing referrals to employment opportunities, employment mentorship and networking, digital matching, apprenticeship opportunities, placement service, and others. Through December 2022, nearly 8,000 transitioning service members and over 500 military spouses have received services from our employment navigators. I'm going to talk a little bit about another program that we also have called the Off-Base Transition Training Program that was piloted in 2021 as well. This pilot created an opportunity for veterans, including those veterans serving in the National Guard and Reserve and their spouses, to attend employment workshops in their local communities. The 10 two-hour workshops are in person and virtual and built to fit a busy schedule. Attendees can mix and match workshops to meet their employment goals and attend at their own pace. The pilot is currently located at 15 metropolitan areas in 5 initial states: California, Pennsylvania, Texas, Massachusetts, and North Carolina. And since it began last January through the end of fiscal year 2022, over 1,500 veterans and military spouses have attended these workshops. We've received many comments from participants who found that the training was useful, and led to employment. We had planned to expand at least 20 states and 50 locations by the end of 2026. One of the things that we built also that is directly in support of military spouse transition is our Transition Employment Assistance for Military Spouses, commonly known as TEAM. VETS has career workshops for transitioning military spouses and caregivers known as, or that as part of TEAMS. And the TEAMS workshops are designed to help military spouses and caregivers as they plan to prepare for their job search in pursuit of their employment goals as well. And all TEAM workshops are instructor-led training, provided at a variety of times to meet the needs of individuals stationed around the world. There are standalone training modules where users can take all or just a few, and then they can be taken in order that fits into their busy schedules. In FY 2022, 1,203 military spouses attended separate modules of the TEAMS curriculum, and we know this is growing. I also encourage you to go to your local American Job Centers for service as well. You may qualify dislocated worker programs, displaced homemaker, and other employment services, and let them know you are a military spouse. This is often an overlooked and underutilized resource that our military spouses are often not aware of. And we're doing our best here to start creating a better message for military spouses to understand the resources that are available for them within the Department of Labor, and more specifically within the Veteran Employment Training Service. Lastly, I'm working to find ways where we can protect military spouses' employment rights. Because we know that military spouses are not a federally protected class. Discriminating against someone because of their military status is also not a requirement in every state, and leaving spouses subject to discrimination. So with that, I'm sorry, I apologize for the background noise, but this is Washington, D.C. So with that, I am looking forward to answering any questions that any of you all have. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak a little bit about what we do here at DOL Vets. And thank you all, most importantly, for taking the time to join this conversation, and also to our hosts for having this conversation. Thank you.
Sir, thank you for that tremendous wrap up. You know, every time I connect with you and your staff at Department of Labor, I'm amazed around the resources that exist, and I appreciate your comments around the legalities around discrimination in terms of marital status, and appreciate the work that you and your staff are doing. Michelle, I also want to welcome you to return to the screen as well. We'd love to open it up to questions and answers for those that are attending. And I think I'll probably just start off with a question, certainly for you, Michelle. For a military spouse that's out in the community right now, and they're intrigued around flexible remote hybrid work, how do they get started just with finding out opportunities that exist at Freedom Learning Group?
If they go to our website, freedomlearninggroup.com, and to the careers page, there's a link where they can fill out a profile. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your interests and your skills and abilities, and then become part of our talent community. And then we will regularly push to our talent community work opportunities that are related to their skills. So you can either look at the current projects that are in flight on the careers page, or you can sign up and become part of the talent community so that you get those alerts as they come in real time. Liz, I also wanted to note that in the Q&A, somebody has asked for resources for military spouses trying to get licensed, but it doesn't say licensed for what. If who's ever posted that, if you could give us a little bit more detail at what kind of licensure are you trying to obtain, maybe we could address that question.
Yeah. And I'm happy to address that. And sir, I don't know if you want to take a piece of that while we're waiting on the information, but I know DOL has tremendous resources as well.
We do. If you go to DOL Vet's website, you can see a licensure map. So we have that information there, but also the Department of Defense has a map as well, and other information about licensing, transferability, and credentialing.
Great, thank you so much. And then for anybody else that's listening and has questions or thoughts specifically around licensing and credentialing, there are a tremendous amount of resources in our communities around the country as well. So whether you're a nurse or a cosmetologist, you name it, runs the gamut. Make sure that you're going to the state and the community that you're moving to, because we've had some wonderful progress from states and communities around the country that have worked to create expedited processes for military spouses that hold some licenses, and working its way up, thinking of the great work the state of Arizona and Virginia have done to create reciprocity around licensure. So you really want to make sure you're starting in the community that you're moving to. I see some questions. Okay. Michelle, this is for you. Will there be more positions that Freedom Learning Group is posting soon? I'm on the site and looking for more open positions.
Absolutely. The number of positions and projects that are in flight changes on a daily basis. So we have a pretty vibrant pipeline of new work coming in. So it's definitely something that you should keep top of mind. And then it looks like the person who was looking for licensing information was looking for counseling, NCE, NCM, HCE.
Okay, we'll work to get you some resources, certainly around that topic and counseling. And I know that many of our military spouses hold degrees and licenses in counseling and social work. And I think another great place to go, another resource is NMFA, who's built some great coalitions around interstate compacts as well. And also the DSLO that is embedded over at DOD. So, sir, I'm gonna hit you with a question, certainly, and I want to be respectful of your time because I know you have a lot on your plate today. So if at any time you need to go, just give me the high sign and be respectful. I know you mentioned earlier that DOL has a map to support military spouse employment. Could you expand a little bit upon that and what the impetus was around the development of it a few years ago and why military spouses should utilize it?
So the map was developed to really look at, and I think, let me correct it, we were looking at developing a map. And so we're now in conversation with DOD. So I said we have a map, but we're in conversation with DOD through the development of that. So I misspoke earlier, so I apologize there. But that's what we're working with my good friend Patty over at Military Community Family, MCNFP over there. So we're looking at how we can develop a map so military spouses can go to that state and look at what licenses and credentials are transferable. And so we're in the process of doing that. Got a little excited, got ahead of myself about the map.
That's all right.
But with that, we know how important that is. So somebody can go onto the website, and we're also looking at where it's going to be hosted. So somebody could go into that website, look at that map, and then get all the information they need there, as well as point of contacts to really connect with more questions. So that is still in conversations between both of our agencies right now. And I'm here for the duration, right? My team, I made sure that we kept the time for this important conversation, so I'm here.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Michelle, I'm going to ask you a question. So if I'm a biologist by trade or chemist, but I don't have a background in, say, project management, and I see some opportunities that are posted, am I still a good fit in theory to come apply at FLG? And if I am, what does that process look like?
So we not only employ people who have degrees in their related fields to do content development in that particular practice, we also have an apprenticeship program for project management. So anybody who's interested in either using their degree to be a subject matter expert or joining us in terms of being a project manager, instructional designer, technologist, those are all roles that we regularly use in the content development practice. And so again, if you fill out a talent profile, you'll just get alerted as to what types of work opportunities are available. It looks like there's a few more questions in the chat, Liz.
Absolutely. So I see one of the questions or statements is, I'd like to know if veteran spouses are included. Please remember us also. I can tell you from the Hiring Our Heroes perspective, we went through this exercise 7 or 8 years ago. Our definition of a military spouse is anybody whose partner has served this country. And it doesn't matter if that partner is active duty or veteran. We want to be inclusive of active duty and veteran spouses. We understand the challenges that may have occurred during your service members' time in service to the country. We have that luxury and ability to do that because we are a nonprofit. And certainly the environment that exists at FLG is inclusive of any military spouse as well. So I hope that's helpful.
There's a question about can military spouses expect in the future a way to self-identify after applying to a job, much like veterans do?
Yeah, and sir, I don't know, I know you gave some great testimony this morning, especially around you, Sarah. I don't know if you want to expand on that, and we can provide that testimony to attendees after. But if you want to take that one, and then I can expand a little to follow.
Please, we appreciate you sharing that testimony, because one of the things that are in there is our agreement with members of the committee, chairman and ranking member and other committee members, is that military spouses are a class that should be protected. We are looking for ways to work with the committee on how to protect the employment rights of our military spouses, ensure that they do not face discrimination in any capacity whatsoever, just like we do with our Guard Reserve members or veterans and transitioning service members. That is a in-depth conversation that has happened over the last a year, ever since I came to this office. I think for those who know me, for the last 2 years, I've been an advocate for ensuring that our military spouses can benefit from our programs and looking for ways to increase that benefit through our other program admissions. So we're working with Congress. You'll see that in the testimony. We're going to continue to work with them to look for ways to protect military spouse employment. So one thing I wanted to add that, Liz, that I should have mentioned also is that if you go to military1source.mil, the DoD's website, there would be a map there that the spouses can also look at for licenses and transferability also.
Great, thank you so much. And I'll pull the thread on that one as well. You know, we've watched with success over the years where some of our large corporate partners, and again, speaking from the Hiring Our Heroes perspective, have worked with their legal team to allow and create an opportunity, and this doesn't go for all businesses that we work with, for military spouses to identify during the process. And it's not an easy process if you see a company that has that opportunity to identify, that they've worked really hard to put that there, not to discriminate against you, but because they want you to be part of their ecosystem. Large businesses have traditionally put a lot of time and effort to be able to do that because they want to make sure you're ending up in the military community pipeline and ending up with the right recruiter. So you shouldn't feel like you should not hesitate to identify if that exists as an opportunity at a large business. And certainly at Freedom Learning Group, I think Michelle and team have created a wonderful culture where it is embraced because of the power that military spouses bring on a daily basis to the workplace. So I see a question. I changed careers and got a certification in agile project management. and looking for a volunteer or internship opportunity to get working experience in a job. How can I achieve that? I think one of the great pieces that has efforts that has launched this year, certainly in collaboration with the Department of Defense, is that last year in the NDAA, Congress allocated $5 million for Patty Barron's MCF and MCPNF to use to launch fellowship programs. And we are working closely at Hiring Our Heroes with the Department of Defense. The program's called MSCAP. And you can go on and apply through DoD, through SACO, apply for the program. I think to date, we've had about 2,000 people apply, about 400 of them, or a little less than 400 are qualified, and we're working to place them. So we're working with small and large businesses to place military spouses, just like yourself, into those fellowship programs. It is 32 hours a week, $18 an hour, and it lasts 3 months. So really allowing military spouses to embed with companies, small, medium, large businesses. And then Michelle, I don't know if that question makes sense for you to answer from an FLG perspective around opportunities to get work experience in a job.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually typing an answer when you started addressing the question, but so the answer for us is fill out a talent profile. And if we have the need for a project management position, we'll reach out and let you know that opportunity is available to you.
So Liz, can I add something to that conversation also? One of the things that we are advocating and working closely with corporate leaders all across the entire country is apprenticeship programs. And so that's been a push from the President, Secretary of Labor, me, and our staff, bringing more service members and military spouses into apprenticeship programs. We know they perform exceptionally well, 92% higher rate after the apprenticeship program. Every industry that you can think of now is looking at apprentices as a new talent pool because of the fact they do not have enough workers. And so we're constantly talking about getting more transition service members into apprenticeship programs, as well as inclusion of military spouses in these programs. And we've seen it across the entire country when we go to speak at different audiences, different states, different leaders that I speak with. They are looking at more ways to find new talent, and they're looking at expanding their apprenticeship programs in every single industry, from IT, cyber, financial, to, of course, all of the other industries that have traditionally had apprenticeship programs, but non-traditional industries have now embraced the apprenticeship model. And so I would encourage any spouse to once you get paid while you learn, 92% success rate, and as well as a good paying job post a completion of that apprenticeship program.
That's great news. And I'm thinking about some of the programs we've created at Hiring Our Heroes, where we're taking military spouses who have gone through Salesforce training and are Trailhead certified, and we're able to place them in industry for those 3 months. I believe the starting salary is about $90,000, right? So the opportunities that are being created through apprenticeships, opportunities to close the skills gap, they are more robust now, I think, than they've ever been, certainly, at least in the 20 almost years that I've been a military spouse. And so I think the creativity and the opportunities, especially that COVID has created, where the country is certainly starting to embrace a remote and hybrid flexible workforce, and then the skilling opportunities that are out there. I'd encourage everybody on here, whether you need it now or not, to go pursue some of those great opportunities that exist, whether it's apprenticeship or an opportunity to close the skills gap. Certainly. I see a question around military spouse and caregivers returning to the workforce with career gaps. Is there assistance for this as well? There are, always want to reference our great friends at the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, who do tremendous work to support our caregivers, our friends at Wounded Warrior Project. And Diane, it's a great question, because so often our military spouses are carrying the caregiving duties, especially after 2 decades of war. And Michelle, I would think certainly at FLG, while there's not specific funding, the flexible and remote environment that you've created would be conducive to a military spouse who's wearing their caregiver hat.
Absolutely. Because we have projects that are of short durations and have different requirements in terms of the amount of time required every week. We have lots of flexibility about people dipping their toe back into the workforce, and figuring out, what a good fit is for them moving forward. I also want to point out that as we're talking and these questions are being discussed in the webinar chat, we're doing our questions in the Q&A, but in the webinar chat, the HOH folks are dropping in links to lots of different resources that are addressing the questions that you have.
Great. I see another question. A lot of military spouses I have met have advanced military degrees. What programs do we have for them? Certainly, we know military spouses are more educated than our civilian population. Oftentimes, we end up living in areas that have economic challenges, and we're not able to go to work to support where we're degreed. So I want to certainly say any of the opportunities that we have at HOH from that we're partnering with DoD on MSCAP, the fellowship programs that we have, the pipelines that we're building are certainly very friendly to military spouses who have advanced degrees. I don't know, sir, if there are other. I think you touched on apprenticeship programs, and not sure if you have anything else or other resources to point in their direction.
So just for us, if you have an advanced degree or degree in general, we're working with employers to try to make sure that they have opportunities for military spouses, not specifically for an advanced degree population. But one of the things that I will give you as far as food for thought when having conversations with employers, because these are the same discussion points that I use, is that research is showing right now that a recent college graduate is going to leave about 3 to 4 jobs within their first 2 years after college. And so in the old days when we used to say we want to hire military spouses because they're going to move, often in those every 2 years, that doesn't hold water, for lack of a better phrase, anymore, right? Because we have to look at innovative ways to keep our spouses employed. And so this is what I'm telling employers, corporate leaders all over the country, that we can't use that outdated mindset of why we are looking for ways to create obstacles for military spouses. The pandemic's taught us something that we can all be virtual and we can be innovative in employment of our military spouses. And so I'm asking them to create ways and opportunities to employ military spouses in remote areas with roles that are transferable also. And so again, we know how valuable the military spouse community is, and employers can benefit from that if they take off their preperceptions about not being able to tap into that talent. And so we're really using that message. I encourage everybody here to really amplify that. We have to change our thinking about employing military.
Great. Michelle, and I would think a military spouse that has a degree or an advanced degree, probably landing at FLG is a perfect fit for them.
Absolutely. I mean, typically all of our projects require some level of subject matter expertise. When I worked for a competitor, we were typically hiring faculty members who had a day job, only had a few hours a week to give us. We find with our military spouse talent pool, these people are really excited, have a lot more time to give, really engaged in the work. And so it really brings a level of engagement and excitement to the work that our clients don't see with other subject matter experts that they work with.
Great. I'm always so impressed with the talent that FLG attracts. I think every time I chat with somebody in your ecosystem, I think, my goodness, military spouses are beyond talented. It's just wonderful. There's a question in here, and I don't know that I know the answer to it, but are there any specific resources for foreign military spouses? Federal jobs in companies in the vicinity of military bases are unfortunately out of the question because they require U.S. citizenship and/or a security clearance. I don't know if anyone wants to take that, and if not, I can find an answer.
So we do not currently have a resource for it, that's I can tell you, but this conversation, actually, I just had it last week, actually, at Fort Hood, with a roundtable of military spouses, military spouse who was from Ukraine, had a degrees as well, but was not able to work in the US because of visas. And so we're taking a look at that. We're going to see what we can do with the committees up on the Hill, if there's anything we can do from our standpoint, from the federal government standpoint.
Right. And I know, I believe it's the end of March. We are, there'll be a foreign military spouse summit that's occurring. So it'll bring Canada, the UK, Australia, and the United States together virtually, so we can share that information too. I think it's a great opportunity to figure out if there's a way to obtain remote work in the host country that you're from, even while living here. And I don't want to say it's impossible, because I have certainly met spouses who are working with some of our bigger companies, especially as their spouses in foreign military and potentially stationed here as an attaché or a liaison, and certainly know that they're going to work. So we'll have to do some digging to make some suggestions around right companies as well. When can military spouses start applying for Hiring Our Heroes Fellowships program? It's open now. So I want to be clear, we have our own spouse fellowship program, but we are really focused on supporting DoD in the MSCAP fellowship program that launched at the start of January, and that program is open now. We'll send the link out after, if it hasn't been dropped in the chat yet either.
There's a couple of posts about folks who have advanced degrees in education, MBAs, that are having trouble finding work. Again, these are disciplines where we have lots of project work that comes in for, especially right now, there's a really vibrant opportunity around developing micro certificates, so those smaller certifications that aren't actually like undergraduate or graduate degrees. So we have projects that would be lined up with PhD in education and MBA. And then the next question is, if I want to get a new skill, do you have any advice for me? And I would circle back around to the apprenticeship programs. There was a question earlier in the chat, like, what's the difference between an internship and an apprenticeship? An internship, typically, not always, but sometimes you're working for free. With an apprenticeship, you're actually learning on the job and getting paid for learning that. And so that's why it's a really great opportunity for someone who wants to change careers. And a lot of apprenticeship programs do not require you to have a background in that discipline. I mean, that's the whole idea, is that you learn on the job.
Yep. And it's the on-the-job training is really just first class, and we know changes outcomes, certainly economically. I do see a question: is MSCAP for active military spouses or open to retired military spouses? MSCAP is for active duty military spouses, but the great part about that is the structure that we've created at Hiring Our Heroes. If you are not an active duty spouse, you can we'll funnel you into our military spouse fellowship program, and we're absorbing the cost then for you to do the 32 hours, $18 an hour, 3-month program. So we were very intentional about making sure DoD is covering the active duty spouse, and we are covering the military spouse who may be a veteran spouse. And then I saw another question I was going to answer. I'm not sure where it went, but it was certainly, I believe it was a foreign-born spouse who had a PhD, applied for a job on installation, and was directed to apply at the BX, and felt like it was because he or she was foreign-born. I will tell you, that's not because you're foreign-born. I don't know where the installation is. If it's overseas, often we're limited based on status of forces agreements, who can go to work, what percentage can go to work, how many have to be local nationals. But that's also a process that we're working to change in the communities around the country, where we help hiring managers understand on installations, because I wish it was unique to you, but it is certainly a narrative that military spouses for decades have been navigating. I'm thinking specifically also, we had a spouse with a PhD and a lawyer. It's almost like a joke. Sounds like a joke. They had to move to Italy, were extremely limited by the status of forces agreement. And I think they were told to apply for a secretary position. This was in the early 2000s, and they got angry and launched their own government contracting business. And 18 years later, and after hiring thousands and thousands of military spouses, they just sold the company, after having won massive awards worth, 80, $100 million. So while I wish, I don't want you to think it's because you're a foreign-born spouse, it's just a process that we're going through, as we certainly know that military spouses want to go to work.
So Liz, can I give another little bit of information here?
Absolutely.
So if you look at the DOL Vets Jobs for Veteran State Grants Program, so in every state, we have a workforce center that is funded by the Education Training Administration within DOL, but we have disabled veteran outreach programs and local veteran employment resources that are there. They work with service members. Military spouses can go to these centers and get information about what type of employment exists, corporate connections, and then also they can direct them to additional resources that they may need. And this is a free resource. So I would encourage any spouse that is looking for additional information, looking for connections to the community, to the employment community, aside from working with you all, because you both are amazing, your organizations are phenomenal, but also look at our American Job Centers and figure out what resources we have there that can really benefit someone when they're looking for a job, especially if they're relocated to a new state. These resources are free and open.
Great. Sir, every day, anytime I'm on the DOL website or I'm doing research, and I've been doing this for years, I feel like I discover a new resource. And I think one of the most powerful ones that I don't often hear that military spouses know about are the American Job Centers. And I always feel like when you move to a new community, your first stop should be the Chamber of Commerce and the American Job Center. Could you share a little bit, if I walk into an American Job Center, what I might find there, what I can use them for?
That's a great question. And so American Job Centers it's an organization that basically has wraparound services for someone who's seeking employment. Oftentimes it gets categorized as someone who's unemployed and looking for unemployment services. That is not what it is. It's a support for employment resource center, if you will. And so the really neat thing about that, if someone's coming in, they're looking for employment resources, they can also ensure that they make the organization aware of the fact that they need additional resources, whether it's additional training, whether it's additional licenses, things like that. Part of the American Job Center is that they're not only going to speak to a DOL vet representative, there might be a rep there that will help guide them to resources that will help them get that additional training. Other resources such as where to direct them to someone who may need childcare. They can talk to them about what organizations are providing that childcare if someone's looking for employment. So there's numerous types of resources there that are free and oftentimes goes underutilized, overlooked. And so one of the things that we are trying to do is get more people to understand that these resources do exist. And Mark just put it in the chat because there's such a unique way for our service members, veterans, military spouses to get resources that are free. And they can use it anytime they want. When they come in, they have to self-identify either as a veteran or military spouse. And that gets them, as I call it, head of the line privileges, because our DVOPs and leavers, they work specifically for veterans and military spouses.
And so would that be a good resource for somebody who's trying to navigate these licensures questions? Because there's a number of questions in the chat about, okay, if I'm in a state where they don't recognize out-of-state licenses, how do I navigate that? Would somebody at the American Job Center help?
Yes, they would. Because part of our the American Job Center, which is funded by ETA, Education Training Administration, they have people who have information about licensures, credentialing, and apprenticeship program as well.
And then there's a question about, are there opportunities for military spouses to get further education outside of scholarships? Are there fellowships or grants related to education?
Yeah, certainly I would recommend if there's a specific university, maybe that you want to be embedded with, if you're looking for fellowships or grants, National University, certainly pops to mind as one that is extremely military friendly that we've been working closely with. I know that there are always fellowships, there are always grants out there. National Military Family Association is a great place to start. MOAA is a great place to start. If you are Army, AUSA is a good place to start, and can think of some additional resources that we can share, certainly. Michelle, I have another question for you. Oftentimes military spouses are taking jobs just to be able to afford to live and provide for their families. Can you talk a little bit about the structure and the environment that you've created at FLG, where maybe you come in as a subject matter expert, but how you can grow within the organization and really have an opportunity to promote and potentially build a career?
So most of our folks do start in that subject matter expertise lane. They're coming to a project to lend their expertise from their biology degree or their accounting degree. But once they're involved with a project, they look around and they see there are all these other roles that are involved. There's project management, instructional design, technology, and there are opportunities within our community where you can actually, in an apprenticeship model, you'll get paid while you're training to learn the practice of one of those different types of roles, and then have an opportunity to then play that role on different projects or even raise your hand for full-time employment as those roles come open. So we have most of the folks that work for me full-time started as a subject matter expert and then moved into some other part of the workflow.
I wish we could get more companies at large to embrace the model that you've created, where we allow military spouses to decide what right looks like at that point in their life, right? I certainly know in my own life, there was a time where I only wanted part-time work. And then as deployment shifted and children went off to school, it allowed for an opportunity for full-time work. So I think the model that you've created, where we empower the military spouse to decide what right looks like for them in their career journey, is really powerful and honors the military spouse. So appreciate the environment that you've created. I know that we're getting close on time. I want to turn it over to each of you for last thoughts, closing remarks, anything that you want to leave those in attendance with as we close in on time.
I would just say that I welcome everybody on the call to become part of our talent community, and we are here to help. Feel free to reach out. Once you become part of our community, you will be in our network, and we'll be able to communicate with you back and forth. And if we can't answer your questions, we know the folks who can. And so we'll put you in touch with folks if you haven't received all the information that you wanted today.
So I would add that military spouses have to continue to be advocates. They have to continue to have hard conversations with people who don't understand the value of military spouses. They have to ask our government leaders, if you will, to be aware of what the needs are for military spouses. Right? We can't have it where we tell military spouses what they need. We need to hear from them to let us know what we can do to support them based off of their needs. Liz, you put it plainly and I think perfectly, where depending on the time of that employment need, what is best for you, right? I don't want organizations or corporations or government leaders to tell us what is best for you. And so we need to understand how we can support you. How do we partner with other organizations who are doing this great work to strengthen the coalition, if you will, of organizations that can really meet the demands of the military spouse community. We try to do this at VETS every single day. As you all know, I even changed our vision statement when I came here 2 years ago to include military spouses, because I wholeheartedly believe in that. And that's resonated across our agency for the last 2 years, and it's going to continue to do so. So we want to continue to find ways to also be innovative, which is a government word that's not often used, but we're trying to find ways to be innovative in our own agency to ensure that we have programs that meet the demands of the military spouse community, because we know how valuable it is to our national security, and more importantly, to the retention of service members and or recruitment of service members. And so how you treat your men and women who served and their families is directly proportional to the ones that want to serve. And so we are partners here. Please always let us know what we can do better as an agency. Please let me know what I, as the leader of the agency, can always do better as well.
Michelle, sir, thank you so much for your time, your energy, your passion and dedication to serving this community. I think today we're sending a very strong message to military spouses, to the all-volunteer force, to America at large around the power of the public-private partnerships that exist to ensure that our military spouses have an opportunity to pursue economic opportunity, to close the skills gap. But as we think about maintaining our all-volunteer force, national security, we have to continue to come together as small, medium, large businesses, public-private sector, and create those solutions. So to each of you, and certainly on behalf of the population I represent, I want to thank you for the time and the energy and your continued dedication to be in this fight. And to everybody on here that dialed in today, thank you for joining. We'll be sending out a follow-up and we'll work to continue to get you the information that you're asking for, and certainly use the QR code, and don't be afraid to reach out on LinkedIn. We want to remain engaged. I'm wishing you all the best of luck.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.